Hey you, welcome to the first episode of Home to Me. I am so glad that you're here. This podcast has been in my brain for must be about 2 years now. And I'm so excited that we finally get to start with episode 1. I was thinking today as I was starting to record this podcast, what took me so long? Because I've had the middle part of this podcast planned out for so long, I just realized that I had no idea where to start. And that's so funny because it perfectly parallels the process of what this podcast is going to talk about, which is the journey from recognizing that there are things about yourself that feel uncomfortable, that get in the way of self-trust and feeling important and valuable and good enough. And we realize that, but knowing where to start the change can often be the hardest part. And I feel like that's with this podcast. Like, I knew what I wanted to say, but I had no idea where to start. Like, the fears and everything just felt way too overwhelming. So I'm so glad, because I'm going to do that right now. I'm going to start, and it's not going to be graceful. It's probably going to be pretty awkward sometimes, but the scariest things are sometimes and / maybe most of the time the most honest. So in this first episode, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story. It's not going to be the polished version, but it is going to be the version that I used to hide. The one that led me kind of far away from myself and then eventually brought me back home. So let's rewind. For a very long time, I looked like I had it all together. I said the right things. I made people comfortable. I smiled when I was supposed to. I was really great at reading the room. And I actually don't think that one's gone anywhere, but I'm good at reading the room. And I used to be even better at editing myself to match the room. So basically, I was performing. On the outside, I'm sure I looked very capable and even calm. But on the inside, I was second guessing everything. Conversations would replay in my head long after they were done. I would be wondering, did I say too much? Not enough? What did they think when I made that comment? Did they maybe think it meant this? What about this? And I said this and I didn't laugh at that. And are they going to be mad at me? That was my brain afterwards. One time, I remember, I worried myself so much after having an interaction with an old school friend that I developed the worst stomachache, and it went on 4 days. Does this sound familiar? Okay, now let's fast forward. Once I realized that I never really felt truly at home and comfortable in my skin and in my brain, I knew that I wasn't happy with myself. We're going to fill in a lot of the gaps as we go, but I don't want this episode to be like 19 hours long. So I have this realization, and now I'm really stuck. Because before, the part of my brain that was holding that discomfort about not being myself, like the part of my brain that would be like, this isn't you, that part was small. It was quiet. It was a lot quieter than the part of me that was driving me to fit in. But once I started to feel that shift, once I started to notice like the things I'm saying are not authentic to me, the things that I'm agreeing to, I don't really agree with, like I guess the voice that I had noticing that I was lacking self-trust and authenticity was getting louder and louder. I didn't know what to do. I started to really not like myself. I remember during that time, instead of ruminating on whether or not I said the right thing to be liked, I would ruminate on why the fuck I would verbally agree with someone that I strongly disagree with. Why couldn't I just disagree or just say nothing? I would watch something happen to me or someone else and I would keep quiet as if I condoned it. I feel like during that time, I remember just like genuine disgust at myself. Pretty much sums up that part of my journey. There wasn't like a big dramatic breakdown. It was more just like a slow leak. Like that version of myself that I'd built, that people-pleasing, scared one, scared of confrontation, never standing up for anyone, never saying what she thinks properly unless somebody else agrees. That part of me, or that, I guess that version of me started to feel like a costume, a really, really heavy one. I guess that's the part that I look back on and think, if only I had had somebody telling me, or maybe just like walking with me and those beginning phases, I would have avoided so much like self-loathing. And that's what I'm hoping this podcast will fill. Like there are so many incredible people with podcasts who are so helpful, so informed, so amazing at their job. And I don't want to be just another voice in there, because there's enough, I think. And that's my opinion. I think there are so many people that sounded so American. There are so many people that I listen to that I'm like, this person is just incredible. Like no notes. I love everything that they're saying. What I do think though is I am in a unique position where I've had this personal journey that I can share on here, and I am a therapist at the same time. Combining those two parts, the woman who has lived and the therapist, I hope will give a unique perspective where we're going to personalize the self-help a little bit, and we're still going to be able to pull from a strong theoretical background. So win-win, I hope. Using that experience and that theoretical background, you and I are going to work on building self-trust. Self-trust, for the sake of time and this first episode, I'm going to define as your ability to have a knowing that you have worth and value no matter what. What do you think? What you feel? What do you want? What do you like? What you don't like? Those things are all valid and important because you say they are. Not because anybody else confirms it for you, not because your parents taught it to you, not because your friends are doing it, but because you genuinely know those things about yourself and you trust in your own knowing. Now, I think we're going to have to nuance this a little bit. I think it needs more meat on its metaphorical bones, but I think that's a good start. So where did I start changing, or where did I make the first step in this self-trusting homecoming journey? For me, I will say the start of the homecoming was not anything hugely dramatic, but I did start doing something radical very slowly. I stopped trying so hard. And I think the other people pleasers and confrontation avoidant and like in your head anxious people out there will understand why I call that radical. And if you don't get it, like, good for you. I'm so glad that you don't have that self-doubt in your body. But for somebody like me, it felt very radical. I gave myself permission not to be the most agreeable person in the room. Imagine. I let silence hang in the air instead of rushing to fill it with reassurance or agreement. Another one that I was like dying inside when that was happening. And I started asking myself, what do I want? And keeping quiet long enough to actually hear the answer. like pausing long enough to hear the answer. And let me tell you, if you can't tell by my sound effects, at first it was uncomfortable. I felt so selfish. I felt so unsure. I for sure continued to get stomach aches and lie awake at night ruminating. I continued to take my frustrations with myself out on those around me. That's something I still think about sometimes, and just, yeah, not my favorite memories to go back to, but they're a part of me. And I honestly, during that time, felt like I was messing everything up. I was like, what am I doing? At the same time, though, there was a tiny shift almost immediately. And I like to call it my knowing. Like a teensy part of me knew that acting that way, not trying so hard, giving myself permission not to be the most agreeable, letting silence hang in the air instead of rushing in, asking myself what I want and listening, that was good, that was me. And that I liked doing that a little bit more than what I was doing before. And don't get me wrong, like I said, there were lots of insecurities and feelings and things covering up that knowing, but it was there. I remember noticing it. It was teensy tiny, but it was there. I think slowly, quietly, I started to feel like me again. Slowly, quietly, I started to feel me again. Not the version of me that I thought people wanted, just me. The thing is, self-trust isn't loud. It's quiet and it's steady and it's so powerful. This is not going to be about perfection. It's also not going to be about having all of the answers. It's just about coming home to your voice, your confidence, your truth. One messy, honest step at a time, coming home to yourself. So, if you've ever felt like you were performing a life that looked really good on paper, if you've been the strong one for so long that you forgot what it feels like to receive, if you're exhausted by the masks and you just want to feel more you again, or if you're angry and frustrated and resentful all the time and you don't know why, or even if you don't actually think that you've ever truly met yourself, like even if you're a person that's like, I don't even know who I am, this is going to be for you. You are not alone. Together, we're going to find our way home. I want to leave you with something at the end of today's podcast that you can write down or memorize, take with you today. Coming home to yourself is the most rebellious thing you can do in a world that profits off of your doubt and your insecurity. Coming home to yourself is the most rebellious thing you can do in a world that profits off of your doubt and insecurity. So if you're looking for a little bit of power or a little bit of fire to start this journey, say this to yourself all the time. Picture yourself as that rebel that says, nope, the world profits off of my doubt and insecurity, and I am rebellious. I'm going to come home to myself because I want to profit off of myself. Oh my goodness, it's the first episode. Whew, we did it. Thank you for being here, truly. There's so much more to come, and I can't wait to share it with you. Welcome home. If this kind of content is content that you like, that you relate to, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Share the podcast with your friends if you think that they'll like it. And please let me know your thoughts in the reviews or in the comments on Instagram. I want this podcast to be something relatable. So if there are things that you want to talk about or hear about, if there are things that you want to ask, your thoughts, your opinions, please go ahead and share them in the comments or in the reviews. Honestly, I don't know how any of that works. So, but if you know, wherever you do it. Interact, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Interact. I'm going to figure it out as well on my side. But in the meantime, while I'm still learning, interact where you interact. I will find it. And let me know your thoughts and your opinions, and we can kind of make this like a collaboration in a way. It was so wonderful to be able to talk to you today in episode 1. And the next episode will come out next week on Friday. Thank you so much for listening.